Hollywood was left reeling after Tom Cruise, the world's most bankable action star, was forcibly removed from the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live in a dramatic confrontation no one saw coming. What was supposed to be a standard promotional appearance for Cruise's latest blockbuster devolved into a live on-air meltdown that pulled back the curtain on the increasingly combative persona of late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. According to insiders, tensions had been simmering long before cameras started rolling. Cruise, known for his professionalism, reportedly arrived at the studio in high spirits, graciously interacting with staff and thanking crew members for accommodating his packed schedule. But the mood soured quickly when Kimmel arrived on set, just minutes before showtime. "He seemed annoyed from the start," said one production assistant. "He barely acknowledged Tom and was griping about rearranging the schedule for him." That cold reception set the tone for what would become a painfully awkward segment. When Cruise walked on stage, the audience erupted in cheers. But Kimmel's flat introduction and half-hearted handshake spoke volumes. The usual light banter was absent. Instead, Kimmel's line of questioning immediately took a pointed tone, focusing less on Cruise's film and more on digging into personal topics Cruise has long avoided publicly. The tipping point came when Kimmel suddenly brought up a disgraced figure Cruise had worked with early in his career, someone the actor has deliberately distanced himself from. "So, what do you think about all these allegations against your old pal?" Kimmel asked, smirking. The audience fell silent. Cruise, visibly tense, attempted to steer the conversation back to his film. "Tonight's about a story that hundreds of talented people spent years creating. That's where I'd like to keep the focus," he said calmly. But Kimmel didn't back off. "Come on, Tom, you were close. You can't just pretend that didn't happen," he said, pushing harder. Cruise kept his composure. "Everyone deserves privacy, Jimmy. That includes me." That's when Kimmel crossed the line. With a smirk, he muttered just loud enough for the microphones. "That's rich. From someone who hawks Scientology while lecturing the rest of us on honesty." The audience gasped. The producer was seen waving frantically off stage, trying to cut to commercial. But the damage was done. Cruise, jaw tight, responded coolly. "I respect everyone's beliefs, Jimmy. I'd expect a professional host to do the same." Rather than move on, Kimmel doubled down after the break. "Let's talk about your control issues, Tom," he said. "People say you micromanage everything. Co-stars, directors, even hosts apparently." Cruise's demeanor hardened. When people pay to see a Tom Cruise movie, they expect a standard of excellence. I take that seriously. That's not control. That's commitment. Kimmel leaned in, smirking. Interesting words from someone who leaves chaos behind wherever he goes. That was it. Cruise removed his mic, stood up, and calmly addressed the audience. "I came here to talk about a film I'm proud of, not to be ambushed by someone hiding behind a smirk. I thought this show was about entertainment, not character assassination." Security was already moving toward the stage, but Cruise waved them off. "No need. I'm leaving on my own terms." As he walked out, Kimmel tried to salvage the moment with a strained smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Cruise. We'll be right back after this break." But Cruise turned one last time. "No, Jimmy. There's no we. There's just you. And whatever it is you're trying to prove." And with that, he was gone, leaving behind a stunned studio audience, a rattled host, and a late-night show forever changed. This wasn't the light-hearted banter the audience had expected. It was becoming increasingly clear that Jimmy Kimmel harbored some kind of personal vendetta against his guest. I've been fortunate to work with some of the most talented people in the industry, Cruise said evenly. Directors like Spielberg, Scorsese, and Nolan. I learned from every collaboration. That's not chaos. That's growth. A smattering of applause broke the tension, just enough to irritate Kimmel. Sure, but let's be honest. Your reputation in Hollywood isn't exactly spotless. There are stories, Kimmel said, leaning forward. Everyone has stories told about them in this business, Cruise replied. So you're saying those crew members who talked about your explosive temper were lying? Kimmel pressed. Cruise's signature smile had vanished. There's a difference between demanding excellence and having temper tantrums. I respect everyone I work with. Anyone who's actually been on set with me knows that. That's not what I heard, Kimmel muttered, just loud enough for the mics to catch. The studio had gone dead silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning. Without missing a beat, Kimmel shifted gears. Let's talk about your last movie. The reviews were, well, let's just say not what you're used to. He pulled a stack of printed reviews from under his desk and began reading them aloud with theatrical relish. A vanity project that proves even the biggest stars eventually fade. That one's from the Times, he said, glancing up with mock sympathy. The audience didn't laugh. Even Kimmel's most loyal fans could see this wasn't comedy anymore. It was a public flogging. After a few more barbed excerpts, Cruise finally spoke. You know what I find interesting, Jimmy? I've been doing this for over 40 years. I've had critics praise me, and critics tear me apart. What I've never done is mock someone else's creative work just to get a cheap laugh. A few audience members applauded. The rebuke hung in the air, and it clearly struck a nerve. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kimmel said, dripping with sarcasm. I forgot. We're all supposed to pretend your movies are flawless because you're Tom Cruise. No one's asking for that, Cruise replied, composed but firm. I am asking for basic professional courtesy, the same I've always shown you on this show. Kimmel scoffed. Professional courtesy. Is that what you call it when your team sends over a 3-page list of forbidden topics before you even agree to show up? That seemed to genuinely catch Cruise off guard. I've never personally sent any list to your show. My team coordinates with your producers to ensure the segment works for your audience. That's standard practice. Standard practice? Kimmel shot back. Nothing about you is standard, Tom. You and your entourage sweep in here acting like you own the place. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is dealing with celebrities who think the world revolves around them? Cruise remained calm. I'm sorry you feel that way. I've always tried to be respectful of your show, your staff, and your viewers. If there's been a misunderstanding between our teams, I'm happy to address it privately. Oh, now you want to take it offline? Kimmel laughed bitterly. Classic. Always trying to control the narrative. Off camera, the show's director was frantically signaling Kimmel to wrap the segment, but the host refused to let it go. Let me tell you something about control, Tom, Kimmel said, his voice rising. I've been doing this show for years. I've interviewed presidents, world leaders, and yes, plenty of movie stars. But I've never had anyone try to dictate terms the way you and your people do. Cruise's jaw tightened. His voice, though, steady, carried weight. I came here tonight to talk about a film that hundreds of professionals poured their hearts into. If you're not interested in having a real conversation, Cruise said coolly, maybe we should end this. Oh, I'm interested, Kimmel snapped back. Interested in why you think you can come on my show and expect me to stick To a script your publicist approved. This isn't a press junket, Tom. This is late night. We keep it real here." "Keeping it real?" Cruz raised an eyebrow. "Is that what you call ambushing guests with topics you know they didn't come here to discuss?" "I call it journalism," Kimmel shot back. Cruz gave a short, humorless laugh. "With all due respect, Jimmy, what you're doing right now isn't journalism. It's not even good entertainment. It's just sad." For a split second, Kimmel looked stunned. Then his face darkened. "You want to talk about sad? Let's talk about how your personal life has become a punchline in Hollywood. How people whisper about you at parties. How your own daughter—" "That's enough," Cruz said, his voice cutting through the studio like a blade. The warmth had completely drained from his face as he rose from his chair. "I've respected your show. I've respected your audience by coming here tonight. I've tolerated your unprofessional behavior out of that same respect. But I will not sit here while you try to boost your failing ratings by dragging my family into this." The studio went utterly still. Even Kimmel seemed momentarily thrown by the shift in tone as the usual late-night theatrics gave way to genuine confrontation. After a few beats of tense silence, Kimmel forced a laugh. "Come on, Tom. You can't expect to come on a comedy show and not take a few jokes. That's how this works." "No, Jimmy," Cruz replied, still standing. "That's not how this works. There's a difference between playful ribbing and what you just did. You crossed a line, and you know it." The show's executive producer stepped onto the stage, whispering urgently in Kimmel's ear, but Kimmel waved him off. "Oh, please," Kimmel said, rolling his eyes theatrically. The great Tom Cruise, too sensitive for a little late-night banter. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You Hollywood types live in a bubble where everyone kisses your ass. Then someone like me tells it like it is, and suddenly I'm the bad guy." A few audience members booed. Kimmel blinked at the crowd in disbelief, then doubled down. "Jimmy," the executive producer called out, louder this time. "We need to go to commercial." "No, I'm not finished," Kimmel insisted, his voice sharp with agitation. "Now, Jimmy," the producer said, gesturing to the camera crew. The operators began pulling back. As the cameras moved, Cruz turned calmly to leave. That seemed to trigger something in Kimmel. "Oh, that's rich," he called out. "Just walk away, huh? Is that what you do when you can't control the situation?" Cruz paused, then turned back slowly. "I'm not running, Jimmy. I'm choosing to walk away from a conversation that's no longer respectful or productive. There's a difference." His voice remained even, but the edge in it was unmistakable. "And just for the record," he added, "I've never needed to control conversations. My work speaks for itself." Kimmel laughed bitterly. "Your work? You mean jumping on couches and hanging off buildings? That's not acting, Tom. That's just a middle-aged man, desperate to stay relevant." A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Even the band stopped playing. The attack landed like a slap. Cruz's expression turned to stone, but before he could speak, a member of his team rushed onto the stage, whispering something into his ear. Cruz nodded, then looked back at Kimmel. "I think we're done. Here," he said coldly. "Thank you for having me, Jimmy. I wish I could say it's been a pleasure." He turned to leave again, and then, from behind him, "Yeah, walk away," Kimmel called out. "That's what you do best, isn't it? Walk away when things get complicated. Just ask your ex-wives." The producer physically stepped between them now, frantically signaling for the broadcast to cut. But it was too late. Cruz stopped in his tracks. The studio fell dead silent. He turned back once more, slowly, deliberately, and locked eyes with Kimmel. When he spoke, his voice was soft, but it carried like thunder. "You know, Jimmy, I came here tonight out of respect for your audience and for this show's legacy. I've appeared on your show countless times over the years," Cruz said, his voice calm but resolute. "Every time I've shown up, prepared, professional, and willing to play along with your sketches, I've treated you and your team with nothing but respect." He stepped toward Kimmel, whose earlier smugness had begun to falter. "But tonight," Cruz continued, "you revealed a side of yourself I suspect will surprise your audience. It doesn't surprise me. I've heard the stories from other guests. Stories about how you turn off the charm the moment the lights go down, how you berate your staff, throw tantrums, act like a tyrant when things don't go your way." Ripple of murmurs spread through the audience. Kimmel's face paled. "I ignored those stories because I try to give people the benefit of the doubt," Cruz said evenly. "But tonight, you showed everyone exactly who you are. And it's not a good look, Jimmy." For the first time, Kimmel had no comeback. He sat frozen, lips parted slightly, as if waiting for a cue that never came. The show's producer, panicked, began signaling frantically, and just before the cut to commercial, the cameras captured Kimmel's stunned expression and Cruz's dignified exit. When the show returned, Kimmel sat alone at his desk. His tone was noticeably subdued. He tried to crack a joke, something to diffuse the tension, but it fell flat. The applause was sparse and uncomfortable. Behind the scenes, chaos erupted. According to staffers who later spoke to reporters, Cruz and his team were blocked by security as they attempted to leave. "You need to wait," one guard told Cruz's publicist. "Jimmy wants to speak with you privately." "There's nothing to discuss," Cruz said firmly, stepping forward. "We're leaving. Please move." The guards didn't budge. Witnesses described a tense standoff. Though Cruz stood physically smaller than the looming security staff, his presence was unmistakably commanding. "I said we're leaving," he repeated, voice low but firm. "Unless you intend to physically restrain us, which I strongly advise against, you'll step aside." The head of security looked uncertainly toward the producer, who'd followed them into the hallway. After a moment's pause, the producer gave a reluctant nod, and the guards stepped back. As they reached the exit, Kimmel appeared, tie loosened, face flushed. "Tom, wait," he called out. "Things got heated. Let's talk." Cruz stopped, turning to face him. "I think we've said enough tonight, don't you?" "Come on, man," Kimmel pleaded, his tone softening. "It's television. We push buttons, get reactions. The audience loves it." "No, Jimmy. That's where you're wrong," Cruz replied. "The audience doesn't love cruelty. They don't tune in to see someone humiliated. What happened tonight wasn't comedy. It was bullying. And there's nothing entertaining about that." Kimmel's expression hardened. "Bullying? You're Tom Cruise, one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. Don't play the victim." "This isn't about power," Cruz said. "It's about respect. And tonight, you showed none. Not for your guests, not for your audience, and not for yourself." With that, Cruz turned and walked toward the exit. His team followed. Kimmel stood frozen, mouth slightly open. Another punchline that never landed. As Cruz neared the doors, a young production assistant stepped hesitantly into his path. "Mr. Cruz," she said softly, "thank you for standing up for yourself. Not many people do that here." Cruz paused, his expression softening. "Sometimes you have to draw a line," he said, "even when it's hard." He nodded once, then stepped through the doors and disappeared into the night. The aftermath morning, the clip had gone viral. Social media exploded. The Kimmel Exposed trended worldwide. Within hours, former guests and industry insiders began sharing similar stories. Accounts of backstage outbursts, controlling behavior, and on-set intimidation. Cruise's confrontation had pulled back the curtain, and what people saw wasn't flattering. The network scrambled. Executives called an emergency meeting and issued a terse statement. Jimmy Kimmel Live would be going on a 2-week hiatus for studio maintenance. Cruise, for his part, declined interviews. His publicist issued only a brief note. Mr. Cruise appreciates the overwhelming support he's received, but considers the matter closed. He remains focused on his upcoming projects. Despite the silence, the fallout was seismic. Ratings for Jimmy Kimmel Live plummeted. Publicists began pulling A-list bookings, and across Hollywood, a new phrase emerged: getting cruised, to stand your ground with dignity and authority when provoked. As for Kimmel, the illusion had shattered. No amount of spin could repair the damage. The mask had slipped, and the world had taken notice. What do you think about this explosive clash between Tom Cruise and Jimmy Kimmel? Was Kimmel out of line, or did Cruise overreact? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes Hollywood drama. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next video.